Oh, so many choices. What kind of? This is a hard one. Let me rephrase it a little bit, and let me talk a little bit about areas where I wish I had been more successful than I had been. One is on bringing, or it would have been in that case, kind of keeping the humanities in the whole campus conversation more successfully than has been done. The group that I came from, that I belong to, that really defined me in many, many ways, has kind of increasingly peeled off from the larger conversation within the university. They have a lot to say about the university, but they're not really part of the conversation in ways that I think they should be, and I think the university would benefit from. So when I think back over the many years that I was in these jobs, I kind of try to figure out, were there moments when I could have done something or done something differently that would have helped sort of keep that conversation going along a track that I think is a very important part of it. The second piece has to do, again, with the humanities, although not entirely with the humanities, and it has to do with graduate programs. I think the overproduction of PhDs in our universities has created kind of devaluation of them in ways that we're paying for now as a university and as a nation. It's not like that's my fault, really. I mean, the problem is that it was nobody's fault and everybody's. I mean, there's just nobody in charge. I started teaching at Illinois in 1969. It was, in effect, the first year of a job crisis that never has gone away, and that's almost a half century. Now, the universities turned out to be quite good at gearing up for what was perceived as a shortage of faculty in the 50s and early 60s, partly from the great post-war boom in higher education. They turned out to be very bad about gearing down to a job market that had been dramatically depressed over what it had been before. So I, having been in a department that produces a lot of PhDs, having been a graduate dean that oversees the doctoral programs on campus, and having been in the provost office that oversees everything that has to do with academics, I don't know exactly what I should have done, but I can't help thinking that there must have been some way to address this more directly than I managed to do. The third area is one that we talked about a little bit before, and that has to do with what amounts to what I think of as university citizenship, of dispersing a sense of responsibility for how the place works in terms of practical matters, in terms of what I think of as shared governance, which is not, for all of the good things about it, I don't have in mind what goes on in the Senate, but what goes on in departments, of sort of bringing faculty into the conversation more thoroughly, that has to do with how we're going to meet the budget crisis, how we're going to meet these changes in our field, how we're going to meet a problem that we've got that's distinctive to us, that we created and now have got to fix in some way. There's a tendency to kind of turn the thinking of those kind of things over to the administrators that I think is probably a little bit exaggerated now. And if I were going to do the last 45 years over again, I would keep looking for ways to sort of change that conversation a bit.